Hi there, I'm Liam O'Mara, and you're on my little philosophy channel, Virtue Signaling. Life throws a lot of curveballs at us, and one thing that's always given me, I guess, some of the strength to move forward, to reinvent myself with each new challenge, is some things that I drew from existential thought, and in particular, from one of the very earliest existentialists. Nietzsche, in particular, is a big influence on me, but, I enjoyed a lot of other existential writers when I was younger, but Nietzsche was my starting point and actually drove me into looking further into the existentialists. There's a line in his middle period work, The Gay Science, that says, what does your conscience say? You should become who you are. And that's it. It's an aphorism. It's on its own. It's like, what does that mean? It sounds so ambiguous. A bit later in the same text, he elaborates a bit and says that what he means by becoming who you are is looking forward to human beings who are, as he says, new, unique, incomparable, who give themselves laws, who create themselves. And ultimately, that's what later existential thinkers like Sartre were after when they started talking about, well, in Sartre's terms, that being precedes essence. Now, that also is a bit of an ambiguous phrase in philosophy. Being precedes essence. What does that mean? It sounds so eggheady, but it's actually a pretty simple idea at the end of the day. This question of essence, what something truly is generally defined by its purpose, what it does, what function it serves. And this is easy to see with things that we make in the world around us. What makes a toaster is that it toasts bread. So the toasting bread is sort of the essence of a toaster. If it didn't do that, it wouldn't really be a toaster anymore, would it? And there was an assumption from very early on within, Greek philosophy, and then obviously tons and tons of later philosophy, particularly more religious philosophy as well, but in most secular traditions too, that there is a kind of human essence, that there's something distinct about us that makes us different from toasters or dogs, for example. My dog's over here. That we have a kind of essence that makes us who we are, that we're born with. And that is an interesting question, because there are bits of nature in us. We have tons of instincts. We carry with us millions of years of evolutionary programming and tons of things in our specific genetics that give us certain predispositions and inclinations. Well, is that your essence? Well, no, especially if you look at the way we understand not only the sociological literature, but also the scientific, when you're looking at the way that your nature basically sets up certain action potentials, certain things that can happen, they can turn out a certain way if you're put in particular circumstances, if you have particular upbringing. So your environment is super important. And there's always this big question in a lot of the social sciences and in some biological sciences, and it got controversial for a while, this whole nature versus nurture idea. And I've never really understood why it's such an issue for people, because it's really both. You need both. We have some elements of our nature, but our nurture matters. So there, together, does that somehow make your essence? Well, there you see the impact of the environment would change you, right? So you're not born exactly how you are. We can't have a kind of hard determinist or essentialist view that says you have this set nature when you're born, because it does change. And it changes specifically through our choices, through what we do and how we live. And that's the real challenge for existentialists, because if our existence, if being precedes the essence, if we're born first and we are something first, and then we become what we are through our actions, there's a constant sense of unfolding or becoming, we're becoming who we are, then, well, no one created our essence. It's easy for people to understand, well, the toaster has an essence because we made it. And if you think that, well, no one made me and gave me a purpose, I don't have a purpose the way a toaster does, then what is the meaning of life? Oh, it's a philosophy channel. Of course, we're going to talk about the meaning of life a lot. Well, what the hell is the meaning of life? The simple fact is, for existential thought, life doesn't have an inherent meaning. It has no a priori meaning. It doesn't start with one. We have to give it one. This is where existentialism can overlap a little bit into nihilism, and people like Nietzsche are often thought of as nihilists, which is constantly offensive to me because his whole project is determined to overcome nihilism. But you have to proceed through it to get to the other side, so there is an overlap with it. So what you're doing in nihilism is you're challenging meaning. You're saying, well, the world doesn't have a meaning. It doesn't come with one. My life doesn't have a meaning. I'm here, but no one put me here for a specific purpose. I now have to choose what that purpose is, and that's the hard part. That's the part that's difficult, and why so many people don't get past that nihilistic stage where you're tearing down the meaning, because then you have to take real responsibility for who you are, for all of your actions, for everything that makes you what you are. It constantly bothers me. You see this in television shows, and oh God, it's one of those like cringe-inducing lines. I just saw it recently in an episode of Star Trek. I had no choice. I had to do it. Bullshit. You always have a choice. That phrase, I had no choice, really triggers me, because you always do. Sartre put this very well. He said that when he was in a German POW camp, he was never more free. And you're like, oh, you're in a prison camp. How do you think you're free? Well, you're free there because it's a state of mind. You have to think, what can I still do here? I can resist the guards and fight. I can try to escape. I can, hang myself or something. I can accept it and become the model prisoner. There's always a choice. You're forced to face that. When we're in circumstances that seem to take choices away from us, it really behooves us to take a step back and think, what choices do I have here? What can I do? How can I make the best of this in order to be more fully who I am? And that's really the hard part. One of the things I want to do a lot on this channel is talk about a philosophy of life. Most philosophy seems kind of like pointless, like, a bunch of nerdy guys talking about, like many angels dance on the head of a pin. Like, how do you use that crap? I want to talk more about practical philosophies, elements that we can take from a wide variety of thinkers and apply them to our lives. This is something that I take from the Existentialist, not as some cool thing that I read Being and Nothing is cool. Yeah, but no, it's how can I use this? What good is this? How can I apply it to my life and become a better person for it? And this is something that I take out of a lot of these discussions, what existentialists call the absurd, and some of them focus on this more than others. Camus talks about it a lot. The absurd is really that realization that there isn't meaning, that it is kind of just open, that it's pointless. Camus had said the most important question of philosophy is, why don't we all kill ourselves? Which seems so depressing, but it doesn't have to be. Because when you realize that you have a choice to create meaning, to create yourself, it's liberating. And it's powerfully liberating. In fact, so powerfully liberating that it terrifies people. Sartre had referred to freedom itself in a pretty peculiar way. He talked about the anguish of freedom, that it was terrifying to people, that it would like, oh, holy shit, I have to take responsibility for who I am. I can't blame my parents. It's Mother's Day, so I can't blame my parents. I can't blame God. I can't blame the society for who I am. Yeah, we can always talk about different circumstances and different factors affecting things. That's a whole different question. But ultimately, who you are, what choices you make, that's you. You get to do that. And through your choices, you're determining what kind of person you really are. And I think that's the difficulty of that, the responsibility of that, the duty of that we must accept that challenge. I think that's the hardest part, really, about taking that leap through what the existentialists are doing, because, it's so much easier to just, blame someone, I guess. But you have no one to blame. That's the lesson of the existentialists. Who you are is up to you. You must create yourself. And why not take up Nietzsche's challenge and say, how can I become some new, unique, inconquerable person? Some incomparable thing that's never existed before. Why can't I just create my own story instead of accepting the one that was handed to me? So there's my little reflection for the day. Once again, I'm Liam O'Mara. This is Virtue Signaling, new little channel on Rogue Media. If you like this stuff, go down and hit down the whole like and subscribe and all that kind of business, and you'll see more of this crap. Yeah, have a great day.